Hello and welcome to Shark Jets. I'm Skidvis. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to bring in your own assets if you've been following along with our Houdini WFC series. So you'll be able to bring in your own assets, create your own style using the cool procedural map generation that we've been talking about. So let's go ahead and jump right into that. But before we do, please hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you very much. Let's get to it. Alright, so here we are in Houdini, and instead of starting off in Photoshop, I've already taken care of this. But I'm going to show you what we're going to do. I've found this picture online of a blueprint for a house, and I'm going to try and reproduce this quickly. So I went ahead and loaded that into Photoshop, and then I made a pixel map version of it. This is a very small image, just 80 by 70 pixels, whereas this one is 800 by 700. So I shrunk this image down and then traced the outline to the blueprint. Now, an important thing to realize when you're doing this is scale. For instance, in this image of the garage, there's two parts to it. It has a total width here. So 11 feet wide is this part, and 19 feet wide is this part. So if you add them together, it's 30 feet, right? So this whole garage, the width of it should be 30 feet. Now, when we're doing this WFC mapping thing, every pixel is equal to 1 meter. So in this case, we probably have 20 pixels across here. So that's 20 meters, or about 60 feet. So it's almost twice the size of the scale that we wanted to do. So that's something you're going to have to keep in mind when you're doing this. You're going to have to factor in that every pixel is a meter. That's how this is going to work. So we went ahead and, like I said, I traced this out and turned this into a little pixel drawing. We're also going to have to flip it. We covered that in the other videos, that this image needs to be reversed for it to look the way we want. So we just do that here. And then in our previous videos, what the black line indicates when we do this is the area that you're going to walk in, right? So this wouldn't work for us. What we would be doing is creating a map that is the outline of this blueprint. We don't want that. We want the rooms to actually be walkable. So the way we do that is just to invert these colors. So I go in ahead and did that here. So as you can see, the black areas are where we're going to walk, and the white areas will become the boundaries. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started in Houdini. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Alright, so now we'll get started in Houdini by importing this and all the other nodes we need to get this up and running. So we'll create a new geo just like we did before, and just drop that anywhere and go into that. And then we'll start off with the WFC Initializer, which is where we're going to load in that image. Zoom out here. So I'm gonna go from texture, find that image on my desktop, which is BP3. Let's just get rid of this here. Okay, so there's our image loaded in, as you can see. How was that on the map? Okay, yeah, this way. Is that right? Yes, that is right. There's the garage and the other garage. Okay, so we'll go ahead and put that there. And then we will also need the Wang decoder. So we'll put that in here. Connect those two. And again, the Wang decoder needs to be the same resolution as the image. And so in this particular image, the final version that I went with is 67 by 52. So we want to make sure that our grid is also 67 by 52. so nothing to see yet. We will also need the WFC samples, so we will do WFC again and find the oh no, sorry, those are the Wang tiles, Wang tile sampler. There we go, my bad. Okay, we've got that, and then we also need copy to points. Copy to points again, like last time. Boom. Then we connect these together and then highlight this one. And as you can see, it has turned everything into a solid block. We need to find the piece attribute, which is called name. And now you can see it's coming together. So if we were to output this now, you would be able to walk in these rooms just like we've done in the other videos. But now we don't want this to use these assets. We want to use our own assets. So for that, we're going to go into Unity real quick and load in some assets. Okay, so I'm in a Unity project. It's a brand new one. The only thing I have loaded is the Houdini engine, as we've discussed in the other videos, and Game Creator, as I've also pointed out, to get me up and running quickly. Now we're going to need some assets, and I've created an asset pack, which is available for download if you want to follow along. So we'll go to Import Package, Custom Package, and I called it Shark Jets Wang Tiles Unity Package, right? So we'll double click that. And what you'll see here is some materials and some models and some prefabs and textures and scenes. But prefabs is what we want to focus on. Now you can see all these prefabs here. They're named as numbers. So as we have covered before, the Wang tiles are all based on numbers. So prefab 0 is going to be a solid wall, a solid 1 meter by 1 meter block. Prefab 1 is going to be this U-shaped item, and so on and so forth. So they're all named after the Wang tile pattern that is in this grid. Cool, cool. So we'll go ahead and import that. Okay, so let's verify this, right? So we'll go into our prefabs folder. All right, bring that up. And if we click on 0, you'll see here, let me bring that up. We've got a nice cube which matches with our prefab here. Our Wang tile 0 is a cube. And if I click on 1, again, that matches the U shape here that we have. So yeah, as you can see, this matches that, and they all match all of these. And 255 is just nothing but grass. So that's all well and good. Now what we're gonna need to do is get the path to these prefabs. Now just for this example, I'm gonna rename some folders just because they're kind of long and I wanna make it as easy to see. So I'm gonna rename my prefabs, my package. I'm gonna just call it Viz. And then the prefabs folder, I'm just gonna shorten that down to P. Right, so now we know that the folder is viz/P, and that's where our numbered prefabs are. So I'm gonna go ahead and just right click on 0 and copy the path. And we're gonna need that back in Houdini. All right, so here we are in Houdini, and we need a couple more nodes to get this going. So I'll just drop an output node just because that's just a good habit to get into. Because if you accidentally leave one of these clicked and you export your asset, then it won't render right. So it will always go to the output node if you have one. So I'll connect that real quick. And that is that. And then the one that does all the magic is a node called attribute replace. So we'll just do a search for replace, And again, that's part of the labs tool. So you'll see labs attribute value replace. We'll bring that in here and drop that in the line. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be replacing the name attribute with a specific one called Unity Instance. And that's going to tell the Houdini engine to find, well, this is going to tell it to replace any parameter or attribute called name with this instead. So next we're going to go ahead and initialize this with the values that are coming from these copy to points. So we'll put a default value in here, initialize value, which means it's gonna preset this to whatever we put in this box. So I'm gonna go ahead and paste the path to my prefab. So as you can see, it's assets viz p0.prefabs or .prefab. And I'm gonna delete this 0, right? And you'll see why. So now I can go ahead and hit initialize value. And what that's gonna do is it's going to go through our copy to points and get everything that's in there. So if we go in here, way too many tabs here. So if we go into the spreadsheet for copy to points, you see all this data here is on the points. So for every pixel, every point that we're producing, we've got the XYZ coordinates of that point, we have its colors, whatever. But we also have its name, right? And that's going to be the name of the Wang tile that gets assigned there. So if I come back here, this is unhappy because of what? I don't know if source is specified, but that makes sense. So now if I hit initialize values, what it'll do is it'll go through our copy to points, and everywhere it sees that name attribute on the point, see how these are all zeros, that means it's using the 0 block. And if we scroll down, you'll see there, this one's using 241, this one's 255. So it'll convert those into a different attribute called Unity Instance. So if we expand this real quick here, you can see that all of these are now pointing to assets viz p.prefab. There's no prefab being selected. So we need to manually go in here and set these up. And this is why I kept the names short, because I wanted to make it easier to read. So it's gonna say basically, these are all the Wang tiles that you're using in the image we imported. So if we go ahead and come in here and pick a different image and then run this initialize values again, it'll create a new list based off of what's being used in the image. So now we want to go ahead and change these to the prefab that matches this number. So for instance, it says anywhere you see a 15, use this prefab here. So we have a prefab called 215, so I'll just go ahead and punch in 215. And then the same thing here, 199, and so on and so forth. Okay, there's a couple of gotchas that I wanted to highlight here, and I almost got caught by one of them. 241. You got to make sure to scroll down this list. You might think you're at the bottom, but you're not actually at the bottom, and you'll miss some. And in Unity, you'll see this when we actually load the level. If there's any of these that are missing, you'll get a little message, an error message saying it couldn't find the prefab. But another thing to be aware of here is that Houdini is very receptive to the mouse scroll. So if I come in here to 29 and scroll the mouse, depending on, I'm sure it's not going to do it. Oh, it did it. I don't know if you noticed that, but see, if you scroll, it increments the number instead of scrolling the window. So you have to be very careful when you're trying to scroll up and down this window that you're not accidentally messing up your numbers. So I hopefully didn't do that to any of the others. 255, 20, 28. All right, so I can just set this back to 29 and we should be done with this part of it. So that's that. And now we have our attributes being converted into the path to the prefabs. So as you can see here, our prefabs are now pointing in the right direction. Now, one more thing before we're done is the Houdini engine will kind of trip up. It's expecting these point values here. It's expecting a point X, a point Y, a point Z, and what prefab you want to instantiate at that location. Now, sometimes there's attributes on these other sections, like the vertices have these point numbers and these primitives have numbers, and I've found that it causes errors sometimes. It causes it to not initialize correctly. So what I like to do is I like to throw in a dissolve here at the end. So I'll just do DISS and pop in a dissolve. And what that's going to do is it's going to basically get rid of everything. So we want to uncheck this remove unused points. So now we get back our point values, the XYZ for each point, the prefab instance, and if you look at all the other fields, now they're empty. And that's something we want. We want just to be aware of the points that we're going to use and what we're going to assign to those specific points. So that's all we need to do for this part. Go ahead and clean this up with Elm. All right. Not a lot going on here. We initialize the image that we're going to use. We pass that through the decoder and make sure it's the same resolution as the image. We run that to copy the points with the Wang tiles attached to that as well. Then we do the attribute replace, where we replace the numbers coming from the copy to points to the prefabs. We dissolve any unnecessary attributes, and then we output it. So now we can go ahead and turn this into a digital asset. I'll call this blueprint. So we, like last time, we just right click, create digital asset, figure out where you want to save it. I will save it on my desktop. Hit accept, hit destroy spares, hit apply, hit accept. We are ready to rock and roll. So now we go back into Unity and we go ahead and import that digital asset and pull in the HDA. And boom, just like that, oops, we have ourselves a map. Now, as you can see, some of these are, well, I know what's going on here. My floor, my 255, is being dropped down a little bit. I'm not sure why, but I do know how to fix it. So I'm gonna go into Houdini again and let's take a look at these real quick. My zeros are sitting at 0.5 Y, but everything else is sitting at, I have that backwards. My 255 is the ground, so my ground is currently sitting at 0.1 and everything else is sitting at 0.5. So I just need to go in here and tell it to fix that. If you know, do you see what I'm saying here? Here's the prefab 31 and these are its XYZ coordinates. So it's saying that its X position is this, its Y position is this, and its Z position is this. So its vertical position is 0.5. And that's what all of them are, except for 255, which is sitting at 0.01. So it's sitting at a lower position than all the other ones. So there's a couple ways we can fix this. We can just tell it to set all geometry at or all of these points at 0, and that'll fix that. Let's see, how would we do that? All right, so what I'm gonna do is before we replace the attributes, I'm gonna just add a transform in here. So we'll just do a transform and pop that in here. And we'll say if the name is 255, then do something. So we'll add 0.49 to its y. So let's see if that fixed it. So let's see, our 255s are sitting at 0.01 still. There we go. So we're saying check the points attributes. If the name is 255, then add 0.49 to its y, which gives us 0.5, just like everything else. So now we can go ahead and save our prefab and come back into Unity and re-import that prefab. And boom, that fixes our ground. So now everything is on the same playing field. All right, so this is looking pretty good. Now let's go ahead and bring in a player so we can look at some things here. Okay, so here we are. We've built our house. It matches the layout that we gave it. But as we talked about last time, or earlier, every pixel maps to about 1 meter or 3 feet. So you can see here. So that's something you have to factor in, right? Like this is at scale, but at scale to our image, not at scale to the actual blueprint. So we of course would need to go in here and change some things. For instance, if we wanted to keep it at this scale, we could go into our prefabs and just set the walls to be taller. For instance, I can scale the block to be a scale 3 instead, and that makes it 3 meters tall, or about 6 feet, right? So could do that, or we could do other things, but that's just stuff you'll have to play around with. We could of course just go in and scale the whole thing up to 5 as we've been doing. So we'll just come in here and scale everything up. Boom. And now we're itty bitty. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Scale, move the player. All right, here's something that you got to pay attention to also. It's another gotcha. When you do a rebuild, the scale has to be a 1:1:1. Otherwise you get this effect that we had right there where everything is showing a lot of gaps between all the assets. So you have to set your scale to 1:1:1 so it puts everything in the right place. And then once it's loaded in here, then you can go ahead and set it to 555 or whatever it is you want to set it to. So I'm gonna bring my player into the map again. And now everything is as we expected. The rooms are large. We need more lights. We can do this later. We can actually, I'm gonna make another video at some point where I show you how to instance lights at certain places and maybe some bad guys and stuff like that. We'll just keep making videos about this because it's really cool. But as you can see, everything is as we expected. We imported all the assets that we provided, and you have to play around with sizes and get everything how you want it, but it's pretty easy once you get it going. And there you have it, quick and easy as promised. We did it in about, what, 5 or 6 different Houdini nodes. If you like my assets or you want to try my assets out, the link is in the description so you can get those and get up and running as quick as possible. We'll keep making videos on this Houdini magic, so stick around. Thanks again for watching. I'm still SkidViz. Peace out.